So you're considering making a move to Chicago, but you don't quite know enough about the city to determine whether or not you'd even enjoy living here. So in this video, we're gonna go over 5 pros and 5 cons of living in Chicago. So make sure you watch all the way till the end, and by the end of the video, you should know if Chicago is the right fit for you. My name is Peter, and I'm a realtor in the Chicagoland area. I've lived here for most of my life, so if you're considering making a move here, or if you're considering making a move out of here, I'd be happy to get in touch. All my contact information is in the description below. All right, let's jump into the video. The first pro about living in Chicago is the city's walkability. If you're somebody that doesn't have a car or doesn't want to get a car, then you'll be happy to hear this, because in the downtown neighborhoods and those that surround it, you can pretty much get absolutely anywhere just on foot, whether it's a pharmacy, grocery store, bar, shop, literally anything you can think of. Chances are it's only gonna be a 10 or 15 minute walk at most. For example, I could step out of my door right now, be at a baseball stadium in 7 minutes, the lake in 10 minutes, and at public transportation in 5 minutes. And speaking of public transportation, while it's not the world's greatest here in Chicago, we definitely have a decent system. It's fairly reliable, and it only makes it a whole lot easier to operate without a car. So if walking around and not having a car is something that appeals to you, you'll absolutely love Chicago. The second pro about living in Chicago is all of the diverse food options. Look, we're a major city and we're among the most diverse in the country, so with that comes foods from all over the world. If you want great Mexican authentic tacos, there's a place for that. If you want Polish pierogi, great place for that. If you want Indian curry, great place for that. Japanese food, I mean, you name it, some of the most obscure foods can be found here in Chicago. And not only is there a wide variety to pick from, but they're also going to be really, really good, high quality restaurants and high quality food. Look, surviving as a restaurant in Chicago is not easy. It is competitive here, so the ones that do survive and thrive typically have really, really good food. The third pro about living in Chicago is all of the different kind of neighborhoods that it's made up of. Specifically, Chicago encompasses 77 different neighborhoods, and the best part is that all of them are vastly different from each other. If you're somebody that likes the hustle and bustle, likes to be in the center of things, live among the high rises, well then a neighborhood like River North would suit you perfectly. But if you're somebody that likes to take things a little slower, you like a slower paced lifestyle, mom and pop shops, not a lot of high rises, well then a neighborhood like Andersonville would be a better fit for you. With 77 different kind of neighborhoods, there is for sure a neighborhood that'll fit nearly any lifestyle. And the best part is that I've lived here for many, many years and I haven't even experienced all the different neighborhoods. So there's always something to explore, to see, and to do. And that leads me to pro number 4 about living in Chicago, which is that there's always something going on. I can't even count the amount of times that I've been out and about walking in my neighborhood and all of a sudden I stumble upon a street that's been blocked off because there's an art festival happening, or vendors are giving away free food, or something's going on at the park. It's just an awesome feel because you never truly feel alone. You always feel like you're in the middle of it. There's excitement going on nearly everywhere. So if you're somebody that will be living on their own perhaps, or somebody that likes to go out and do stuff, then you gotta be in Chicago, or at least a city of similar size like this, because you will never run out of things to do, and that's one of my favorite things about it. Pro number 5 about living in Chicago is living along Lake Michigan. Now don't get me wrong, Lake Michigan is not an ocean, but it sometimes feels like one because it's absolutely massive. And if you're in the high rises downtown, or actually if you're just walking along the lakeshore trails and park, well, you're gonna get some pretty incredible views of the lake. It also makes for great beaches during the summer, great places to work out, hang out with friends, walk your dog, and there's tons of activities that go on near the lake, especially this one that comes to mind, which is a Friday morning plunge where residents meet up in one spot and jump into the lake in the morning. It's ice cold, but it's a ton of fun. It's a great way to start your weekend. Okay, so we talked about the 5 pros of living in Chicago, but like most cities, it's not perfect. And there's definitely some cons about living here, so let's jump into those. The first con about living in Chicago is the parking. If you're someone that needs a car or wants to have a car in the city, then you're gonna have to deal with it, and let me tell you, it is not easy. Finding parking spots in most neighborhoods, especially the denser ones near the downtown, is very hard. It typically costs a fair amount of money, and if you make any mistakes parking or forget to replenish your toll, you're gonna get a ticket. Now you might think, okay, well, I'll just rent a spot, which you can, although they've been fairly competitive lately, and spots will run you anywhere from $150 to up to $300, depending on where it's located and if it's covered or not. If you're someone who wants to buy a spot, well, obviously that's gonna cost you a fair amount as well. So parking in the city, very, very difficult. If you can, I would highly recommend you actually ditch the car and just walk around everywhere instead. The second con about living in Chicago is the traffic. So this is also car related, but if you're somebody that's gonna be going in and out of the city, or actually between neighborhoods in the city, you're going to run into a lot of traffic. There are certain expressways in the city that are the world's most congested expressways, not even just in the US, but in the world. Ideally, you're in the car between maybe around 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and then after 7:30 p.m. because outside of those times, you're nearly always gonna run into bumper to bumper traffic. It's absolutely brutal, maddening in some ways and some days, and that doesn't help when the roads aren't great here in the city and when the weather isn't either. So keep in mind, you got a car here, parking and traffic might be an issue. Speaking of the weather, that brings us into con number 3, which is that winters here are very severe. I would say that anywhere between 5 to 6 months out of the year, I would consider cold, with the months of December, January, and February being really harsh. I mean, there are times where we have -degree weather here. It's the kind of cold where you walk outside and you feel like your face is burning because of how cold it is. So if you're someone that hates the cold, hates harsh winters, then don't even consider moving to Chicago because we definitely have them. And with the cold, obviously comes the snow as well. The last few years have been fairly mild with snow, but when it does snow, it can be brutal. Several feet of snow can fall at one time. If you're parking outside or you need to walk to work, you're gonna have to get through the snow. So cold weather and snow, if that's not your thing, don't even consider Chicago. The fourth con about living in Chicago are all the high taxes. I work with a lot of sellers in and outside the city, and a majority of them say that the reason they're moving out of Illinois is because of the taxes. Now, we have a flat income tax of nearly 5%. We're the second state with the highest property taxes in the entire country, and we have a high sales tax, especially if you're in the center of the city. It can reach 10 to 11%. So given all of that combined, Chicagoans get taxed a lot. So if you're somebody that's really protective about your income, about your money, then maybe Chicago isn't the place for you. The fifth con about living in Chicago is all the corrupt politics. Now, we're called the Windy City for a reason, and it's actually nothing to do with the wind, but more so because our politicians are bad. It's actually almost kind of a joke at this point because Illinoisans and Chicagoans have been exposed to so many corrupt politicians that we kind of just roll our eyes when we hear about another one, and we do every couple of years or so. We've had governors and aldermen be indicted, and it's always a shame to see, especially because if you think about it, if those things weren't happening, maybe Chicago would be a bigger rival to a city like New York or Los Angeles. So hopefully this is something that gets better over time, but it's not gonna be a fix that's gonna happen overnight. So there you have it, my 5 pros and cons of living in Chicago. Hopefully at this point you have a better idea of whether or not the city is the right fit for you, whether it's a place that you can move to or one that you should cross off your list and not consider again. So if you are interested in moving to the city, stay on the channel because I've got a lot more content about Chicago. And if you want help finding a place here to buy, to move to, a home, well, I can assist in that as well, so just go ahead and send me a message. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video.